I love building your own thing, starting something new, doing it the way you want to do it. We can all do it. But can we all start our own network streaming service? Can we all build a film studio and create movies, the kind of movies that we want to see? Can we change an industry? Yeah, we can. You got to think big. You got to work hard. We're going to talk about that next. Scott Donnelly and Phil Garrett of Good Deed Entertainment on Purpose Under Pressure. And the heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about people just like you and me, business folks, folks who lead organizations. We get up and swing our feet out of bed every morning, put them on the floor and go about our day getting things done. And then the pressures come and they try to knock us off our path. We won't let them. That is Purpose Under Pressure, and that's what this show is all about. If you're back again, thank you for returning and being a part of this with us. If you don't mind, and if you haven't already, would you subscribe or like the show or follow or tell your mom or do whatever needs to happen so that people know this show is worth listening to, worth watching, worth engaging with. That's how we're going to make a difference for business owners and organization leaders across the country. So thank you very much for your support for Purpose Under Pressure. We are brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group, serving sales professionals nationwide from their Akron and Columbus, Ohio locations. They're also in Jacksonville, Florida. They provide sales training for your salespeople. They provide business training, business organizational leadership improvements, skills for you. And you probably maybe might need some of those. So they're doing it right. They're doing it well. They're doing it on purpose. And if I can think of one organization that I would use to help me to prepare and to present myself and my business professionally in the right way, and I think to close more deals and drive more revenue because of that, Sandler by the Ruby Group is who you should choose. So you can check them out online at therubygroup.sandler.com. Our guest today this is just going to be so much fun. We all love the movies. We like the big screens, and we like to sit and we like to eat the popcorn, and it's all great until we realize that, holy cow, what does it take to make these things? And we're going to talk about the entertainment industry and the movie world with Scott Donnelly. He's the founder and CEO of Good Deed Entertainment. That's an independent entertainment production and distribution studio based right here in Ashland. You'll know the name. He's also the owner of Donnelly Auto Group. We're also going to talk with Phil Garrett, who is head of production and development, which means he makes the movies and figures out what they're going to be about. We're going to talk with Phil as well. Together, they are launching Cranked Up TV, which is a streaming video service, and we're going to talk all about that today. That's a lot of pressure. Let's talk about the purpose. Welcome, Scott. Welcome to the show. Welcome, Phil.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Tremendous. Thanks for joining me, Scott. You and I have known each other a long time, and yet I don't think we've ever talked about movies, and I'm so excited to kind of do that with you. Before we start, give me a little idea of Good Deed Entertainment. What's it all about? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the purpose behind all this?
Well, I started Good Deed Entertainment years ago. It was back in I'd say around 2012 is when I decided to dig into movies. Before, actually, it was about 2010 is when I really started to think about it and got involved in learning about the movie making business, so forth. I'd been in the car business all my life, which I'm actually out of now. FYI, I know you said I was the owner of the auto group, but Ryan Sponsler is now the owner of it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All right. So he's the one I've got to butter up for my next deal. Okay.
There
Got it.
you go.
Got it.
I still have a little in there, so don't worry.
Gotcha.
But no, I decided to when I got out of the car business to go whole hog into this, which was just recently, about 2019 is about the time I did get out of the car business. But I decided to dabble in the film business back in starting around 2010, learned all about it, got into my first film, decided to make my first film in 2012 called Tomorrow You're Gone. Willem Dafoe, Michelle Monaghan, Stephen Dorff were the stars in it. Well, that experience led to what is now Good Deed Entertainment Distribution, because from the production side of it, it was quite a challenge. And we got the movie made. It was out. We got it out with another distributor. And from my experience with that was when I decided, it's like, you know what, the independents need a different way to distribute films, because it was a horrible experience. And that was kind of the launch of Good Deed Entertainment as a distribution company.
Okay.
And so I took a lot of what I didn't like and what I felt they didn't do, and incorporated that into a distribution company. Now, since then, we've released about 160 films through the distribution arms.
Amazing. And so let me ask you this question. Let's go back to the one. I've got a question in my head. You wanted to start in the film industry, and all of a sudden you did with William Defoe. How
Yeah.
does that work? Where you're just going to start something, and then this legend becomes
Well,
part of the process.
you know, um, for when it comes to getting stars in films, it's very easy. They either love the script
Okay.
and you can pay them a little bit, or you just pay them the money that's their quote,
And they'll
and
just
that's
do
how you
anything.
get them on board.
So you must have had a good script.
We had a good script, and we had but we had to pay Willem a little bit of money. I mean, that's how it works when you're
Yeah.
going for the bigger names. Now today, that was what, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Today, with everything he's accomplished in this period of time, he'd be
Ah.
a hell of a lot more money.
Okay. Gotcha. And Phil, were you part of it back then, or have you started here recently with things?
I started in 22,
Okay.
in 2022, post COVID, when Good Deed was ready to begin producing films again after
Okay.
COVID.
Yeah, because it had to be tough during COVID to try to figure out. I know the whole movie industry's changed, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit too. Scott, what
Well,
kind of issues were there that caused you to say, hey, this needs fixed? What were the things that were really, and how have you been able to fix some of those things?
I think that one of the biggest things is a lot of these distribution companies were not filmmaker friendly. So it's like, give me your film and don't talk to us anymore.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll put it out. We're going to do business with it, and if
They take it
whatever.
over.
It was a non-transparent. They were uncommunicative. The whole shot. So that was, the biggest thing was we're going to have a communication line with the filmmakers. So right out of the gate, we started having conversations with the filmmakers on their film at least once a week, if not twice a week or more often, depending on when they wanted to talk. Somebody that makes a film, an independent that makes the film, that's their passion, that's their baby. They know more about it than any distributor will ever know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why would you not want to, as a distributor, have that filmmaker there with you, getting their film onto all the theaters, platforms, etc.
Yeah, because they're just handling the nuts and bolts in the business. You've got the passion to get things done. Have you ever had a chance or a situation where you built something that you thought was great, you and your team, and yet the distribution got a hold of it and just dropped it?
Well, that was my first release, was
Okay.
Tomorrow You're Gone.
Yeah.
So that was the first one. If they dropped it,
And that's why.
the whole process did not go well after the fact, and that's why I was like, okay, this does this. If I'm going to make more films, which we did, I'm not doing it this way. So not only were we doing this for ourselves, we were doing it for other independent filmmakers out there.
Okay. Gotcha. And so how does this work? Do you and Phil, you guys create the idea, or do writers come to you and you put them together? What's the work that you're doing at Good Deed?
I'm gonna let Phil handle it.
Okay. So on the development side, it's really, I mean, it sounds easy enough to find the movies or decide what movies you're going to make, but that all starts with the screenplay. And the question is really, how do you find those screenplays? How do you find those filmmakers, those writers, or those writers slash directors? And a lot of times it's personal connections or recommendations. Then, in some instances, people submit, they find our email address, they send us a pitch deck.
Hmm.
Um, and perhaps what we like to start with is a pitch deck and what we call a one pager. Give me the synopsis of the film in a one page. Talk to me about, why is this a movie that should be made? Why is this a movie that cannot not be made? Why will an audience want this movie? We start there, and if it seems like something that's a potential good fit for us, then we will go ahead and say send the screenplay. In the business generally, when you're looking for scripts, you don't accept unsolicited material, because if you do, then it opens you up to all sorts of legal issues if you just accept anything people send you. So unsolicited scripts in the business have always gone in the shredder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So if you're listening and you want to be a screenwriter, you start. It used to start with
You want to get your movie
with
made.
inquiry letters. You would send letters to agents, managers, production companies, and so on. But we read scripts. We have some folks here that work with us who do what's called coverage, and the coverage is sort of a deep dive analysis of the film. Everything from, is it a good script? Is the structure there? Well written? Is it compelling? Is it marketable? Is it something that feels like us? Is it too much of like a thriller and not enough horror? Is it trying to be too many things? So anyway, there's an evaluation process, and then if it's something they recommend or say tell us that we should consider it, then Andy Myers and I will then read the scripts, and if we really like it and when it's something we want to get behind, we take it to our executive producers, who then read it as well, and we do meetings with the filmmakers and so on. So it's really like a business development in a way, like as companies consider new products, what products are you going to make? People pitch their projects and themselves, and sometimes it is a writer director, the auteur, right? And sometimes it is a script and a director who didn't write the script. So it's really, and that comes with the ability to do that comes with experience, time, education, taste, understanding the market. So it's, in that sense, it's very similar to other businesses. So that's how we sort of determine what's what.
So I'm really interested now in the purpose of this, because you mentioned, is it a right fit? Is this something good for us? How do you know what's good for you? I'm interested in the makeup of the company. Like, what are you trying to do? What is a good product? What are you trying to do with this company where just any old movie won't fit?
Well, if we moved to, I've been involved in a lot of different films. Back in, I've done a comedy. We've done a Lifetime movie that back in 2014
Yeah.
was the most watched Lifetime movie of the year.
Yeah.
We've done. I mean, I did Nightmare Cinema back in 2017, which is a great horror film. And I think what we've migrated to now, we did just do a holiday romantic comedy, but we're kind of migrating to the horror genre, just because with the Cranked Up genre, and we're launching the streaming service, which is going to be called Cranked Up TV. We want to make sure we have plenty of original content to be going on there. So at the moment, why we're focused on, if that's your question, yes, that's why we're focused on the horror brand.
You're
Right.
focused on the horror brand because you're building this cranked up thing, and it's just
Correct.
kind of, yeah, okay.
Right. And real quick, so there's Good Deed Entertainment, and there's Cranked Up Films. And so those are what we would call our more those are our brands or labels. Good Deed is mainstream dramas, comedies, family movies, animation, documentaries, a
I
lot of
see.
great documentaries.
Mhm.
And that's really the focus of that brand. Cranked Up Films is genre, so horror, sci-fi, action, thrillers. There's some more grown-up comedies in the mix there.
Very grown up.
Very grown up. That's why they're under Cranked Up. If they're not rom-com, they might be rom-coms, but they're more grown up. So
They're really rom. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, they're really rom, or they're really calm. And but also in the industry, what we're doing in restarting production, what we're doing with Cranked Up TV is the company's been around 12 years, but these are like, they are their own separate entities, and they are like startup companies. So, you're balancing your financial resources and your time and everything else that goes into creating something. Um, and when you're working at low budgets, these are lower budget films, these are not like big Hollywood budget films. You have to look at like, what are the kinds of, I mean, we are horror fans, of course, fans, then filmmakers. Now we make them and produce them and, release them. So where I'm going with this is like horror, science fiction, the genre of films are films that it's not a guarantee you will make your money back with any movie ever. That's just not a guarantee. However, the genre films over time have been the ones that more likely, I didn't mean to thumbs up, but I did, are
That's
the
okay.
ones that are more likely to make their money back than if you do an independent
Okay.
romantic comedy and you don't have someone in it who has a following
Yeah.
at least.
Here today, gone
Or if
tomorrow.
I made a very, very low budget feel bad movie about people coming out of um, the global economic crisis back in 2012. And that movie has no stars in it. And that movie may never make back even its meager budget because it doesn't have those kinds of things. But it
Doesn't
also
have a
doesn't have
hook.
monsters, right?
Yeah.
And people love horror. And we live in turbulent times. And in those turbulent times, people want escapism. And that doesn't that we so we're making those things, but we're really trying, even on lower budgets, to really go for a surpassing level of quality in the products that we make or the films we make.
And I think horror films have a longevity too. I mean, people are always looking for, a horror fan is a is somebody that will watch any type of horror at any time. It doesn't matter when it was made, how it was made, whatever. They're a fan of that genre.
Mm-hmm. And will always be, and they're looking for
They
new
will
content.
always be. So, we make a film today and it, does X. 10 years from now, somebody might rediscover it and say, oh my God, and it'll do double X.
That's what happened. That's what happened to Shawshank, right? It didn't sell
Exactly.
any tickets and did its thing. So let's talk a little bit about. So Scott, when in 2012 you started, and there barely was the internet back then. I mean, that's
Right.
not the truth, but things have changed, and now there's 100,000, however many different channels there are, and you're going to add another one. And I think
Right.
it's really interesting. I had to be a talk show host, to be a DJ. I had to be hired by someone who had the microphone. I now can buy my own microphone and have my own
Right.
talk show.
Right.
And I think it's that way in just about everything. Anybody can make a movie. At least that's what the commercials say on TV. Anybody can, you can also start your own network. And that's what
Yeah.
you're doing. I'm interested in the challenges and the pressures that go along with starting your own network, because that's got to be nuts.
Yeah. It's the biggest part of it is, when you have ideas to get out there that you want to take to the marketplace and create what you want, you have the biggest pressures I see are coming from the existing side of the business, the studio side, the
Holding you
agent
back,
side,
right? Yeah.
the people that have been doing it
They
for
don't
all
want you
these
there.
years that don't want it to
They
change.
don't want you there. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, they're constantly against any form of change because then they have to recreate themselves.
Mhm.
And it's one thing that, and I will always let everybody know that, is never come to me and says this is how we always have done it, because that drives me crazy. You know what? Then find a different way to do it, because just because it's always been done this way doesn't mean there's not a better way to do it. Okay. And then, there's always going to be something that maybe within that you're doing a little of the same, but you've created it better than what it was before. So, I'm not worried about any of that. That doesn't create those sleepless nights for me. One of the things I like, I am a competitor, and I've seen that there's only a couple horror streaming sites. There's a lot of streamers. Obviously, there's the gorillas out there: Netflix, Tubi, Prime. But what we're doing is going to a specific market, a niche market, which is strictly horror. Horror anytime, all the time.
And there's plenty of people out there that love horror that make that network plenty big in your niche.
Right. And, there's only really a couple bigger streamers with horror. I believe they need some competition.
I think so.
That's what we're coming in for. We're going to be their competitor. And, if nothing else, it makes everybody better when they have competition.
Absolutely.
It's a simple fact.
Yeah. It's funny, Scott. I talk with people in businesses all the time. We talk about helping people with podcasts. I can help people run their own podcast. And they say, well, how much money am I going to make? Or they say, well, Joe Rogan's already got a show, or Howard Stern's already got a show.
Yeah.
Oh man, come on. If you can do a show and 2 or 3, 5 people interact with it and you change a life that day, isn't that worth it? And you're going to start this streaming thing. And if someone else has more audience, so be it. If you've got enough to make it profitable and make somebody have a great day watching horror, isn't that what we're doing? There's plenty of room to do your own
and
thing.
I think one other thing, it not only is it there for the end user, the independents out there that are making films are losing places for them to present their film. It's very tough to take an independent film of any sorts, whether it's drama, horror, whatever, to get it into the theaters. There's only so much room for that. Yeah. Then you have, from a transactional standpoint, they can purchase, rent, or buy online. Then you go into streaming, you go into advertising models such as Pluto, Tubi, your regular cable, etc. And what's happening is the independents are being pushed out of all this because all your streamers now they're picking up very few independent films. Listen, if you see some independent film that gets picked up for $10 million, say, that's like being drafted number 1 in the NFL draft. I mean, it happens very, very rarely. Yeah. And we're talking thousands of films a year that are made. Yeah. So there is a place where these independents need to go. So one of our goals is to bring independent horror filmmakers into our fold to let them have an opportunity to make money, because you can't make money on most of these big streamers anymore. You just can't as an independent.
Well, as Scott was saying, you have transactional, or what we call TVOD, TVOD. So that's purchases and rentals. Then you have SVOD, which is subscription. So that's like your Netflix, that's like your Hulu, that's those things. And then, and our service, Cranked Up TV. And then you have AVOD, which is ad supported. We're in a weird space now where all of those services we were subscribing to so that we didn't have ads, and so we had access to all this very cool content, are now incorporating ads. So you're paying for a service and you have ads with your service, and we both hate ads. And so we're starting this as a subscription service instead of like an ad-based.
And it will be ad-free, and it will be ad-free forever. Period.
Yeah, love it.
But also,
okay, we're gonna hold you to that when I'm watching.
I will hold myself to that. Believe me.
Yeah, it's a business where the technology has created this democratization of the ability to create content. Yes, yeah. But you're also, in the past, it would have been, you're kind of looking through 90% of everything to find that 10% of stuff that's really your thing, or that's good, or that's, something you want to watch. And now it's more like 99% of everything out there instead of 90%. So,
but as wide open.
Yeah. And that what Scott touched on about it, independents losing their places to put their films. Yeah, the streamers are not chasing them down. The streamers don't really care. The big streamers don't care too much about them. What we've noticed is on streamers that have been out, you're having to weed through the top most 100, 150, whatever plus most popular movies to find something different, to find something independent, to find something that is not just being sort of broadcast to you every day through ads or whatever, and so that's what we're building is it's filmmaker forward, it's independent filmmaker forward,
and you're setting up that platform for those folks to have success, and for you folks to build something that actually changes the way the industry works and makes a couple of dimes on the side. Scott and Phil, you and I have just met here today, but Scott, you and I have known each other a long time. Yeah. You're a regular guy like me. Like, we can sit at the bar and have a beer. You're just a regular guy. So there's people listening right now or watching right now that are just regular guys that want to do great things. Man, you're starting your own streaming business. You built your own film factory, and yet you and me are just the same. And everybody out there listening, you're no different. You don't wear a cape around your neck.
No.
What are you worried about the risk of failure? Were you ever worried about the risk of failure in all these things that you're accomplishing? Because you're a regular guy doing great things. And I want you to inspire someone out there who's listening that wants to do the same thing, but's afraid to do it.
Everyone in the organization needs to know how to sell. Sales is the strength of any company. Whether or not you're in marketing, operations, or even finance, everyone has a strong shared accountability towards driving top-line revenue. Whether or not you're client-facing or talking over the phone, you're able to build a stronger level of rapport with the clients. Everyone in the organization shares that responsibility to know how to sell.
Are you worried about the risk of failure? Were you ever worried about the risk of failure in all these things that you're accomplishing? Because you're a regular guy doing great things. And I want you to inspire someone out there who's listening that wants to do the same thing, but's afraid to do it.
You know, the one thing I always try to live by is failure is not an option. Now, we know that failure is always hanging around. But if you're going to, I never jump into these things and just all of a sudden randomly decide I'm going to do something without doing all my research, all my reading, knowing what's going on. Now, I'm no technical guy, so these guys will all attest that, I can't get in and do a whole lot on a computer. I'm still here. Can I check my emails and Google something? That's
yeah.
But there's places that you get the technology from. You got guys that work here that know this technology. But I really think the key is I get up, I'm focused on what I'm doing right out of the gate. I mean, I'm thinking about business and I'm thinking about what I'm doing in most of my waking hours. Now, whether that's first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee and I'm scanning through the channels on TV, what comes to mind is like, okay, there's none of this on there. There's none of this. Where could this be placed on the television, or where can this be placed on the platform on your Amazon Fire Stick? Or then you come in the office. You're obviously always thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really kind of an environment for me because I've always loved film, that it's just always in my mind. So I don't want to say I'm always working, but I'm always thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, if anybody that wants to get out there and really get going and doing something, I say, do your research. You got to bust your ass. I mean, it's as simple as that. You're going to have to work hard at it. There's no 5-hour days.
That's exactly right. It's not the easy
There's no
thing.
8-hour days.
I started my business, now I'm rich. It doesn't work that way. Hey, Phil, I'm wondering the same thing. Scott was talking about the fact somebody comes in and says, look, it can't be done. And Scott says, figure it out. That reminds me of an Elon Musk personality, a Steve Jobs personality, where, look, I don't care what the reality is. We're going to get this done this way. Phil is
let me say something first, Brian.
Okay.
If I had that kind of money, this would all be a lot easier.
Well, they didn't always have the money. That's the other thing, too. They had to build something. Phil, I'm wondering how hard it is to work with someone who maybe doesn't understand all the nuts and bolts of it, but demands a specific outcome and a new way of doing things. How does you and your team work with that?
Well, it comes down to communication, right? Like we were just talking about computers today. And like those, so some of us know really like about things like processing power and speed and age and technology and blah, 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 blah. So we can make the case to Scott, okay, so we need a new computer to process all this stuff coming in for the streaming service. We can show him or explain to him why that's a necessary thing.
And let me say the key was we have 4 computers in the back room not being utilized that were built for VR capacity many 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are we not using what we have sitting there not being utilized?
Yeah.
So now I'll let them continue.
Yeah.
We can utilize them for certain things, but then you get into questions of the GPUs and CPUs and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Or if it's something about the streaming service itself and how that architecture works on the back end and managing that kind of data, it's really just about communication. So, it's not that it's difficult. It's just part of our process.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
That's all it is.
I think you're blessed to be able to be working on a team that is forward thinking and is driven by somebody who is forward thinking. I think that's awesome. I'm interested in this. So you're going to start the cranked up streaming service. What are the hurdles? What's the biggest impending point of doom that's going to come and try to knock you off? What's the hard thing you're going to have to accomplish to get this thing up and running and
Well,
successful in the
you
future?
know, and I want Phil to answer some of this too, because I mean, there's multiple things. I mean, it's not a specific item. I mean, it's just getting the technology there. It's getting the marketing out to the world.
Yeah, to let the people know it's
Because
there,
this
right?
is, you know, the capacity of this is worldwide. I mean, our
Mhm.
initial launch is going to be North America, so it's going to be U.S. and Canada, but we have the capacity to take this worldwide. Um, so just the, you know, it's almost limited marketing than it used to be for us. We'd know where to market, where you could use television, newspaper,
Yeah,
radio.
right in your network, in your
Right
home.
now,
Yeah,
we have all this social media world and all these different sites that it's huge, but it's so limited because you can only afford to do so much with it because it's
that's right.
so costly.
Targeted. Yep, yep.
It
I
is
mean,
very
you can
targeted.
target it, which is great, but to target everywhere you need to target
To
is
get enough target.
extremely
Yeah,
costly.
yeah.
Right.
So to me, those are some of the things. I mean, obviously, getting films to load into it. We're building a library in it. I think we're up to a couple hundred now, and
Yeah, so
you know. But
building the
I'll let
service is one thing, and setting it up with the right films is the next thing. But to get people to understand it's there and to
right.
watch it and to want to buy in is a
Right.
whole
Right.
different story. So
And
it's
I
a
think that's
marketing
a
thing.
lot. You know, the
Yeah,
marketing is, you know, that's the one thing that to me, our PR and marketing, you know, we're just getting it all ramped up, ready to go now. I mean, we're going to be ready to launch,
yeah.
but it's like, are we going to hit enough people initially? And obviously, as we do
Takes
it
some
and it
time.
grows, I mean, you know, I'm not expecting to have to get on there and think we're going to have 10 million people on the thing. This is not going to
Yeah.
happen. So
When does
anyway,
this
Well,
launch? Oh no, go ahead, Phil.
oh, I was so. Well, you know, as Scott there said, there are many things that you have to get done or in place or finished, right? But I think it starts with as we've conceived of the service of starting with what's going to make it different. Why do people want to sign up for this? What are the differentiators? Um, and so we've kind of figured that out for
Hmm.
ourselves. Um, but then there is, you know, a very long list of the things that have to be done on the back end
Yeah.
inside the platform on which we're building. But then, yes, like a movie, like a car, like whatever brand of ketchup you make, if people don't know about it, they're not going to buy it or sign up for it or whatever.
That's right.
So it is marketing in a world where ads and films and TV we're in the age of narrow casting, right?
Hmm.
The broadcasting is changing, going away in the way that it used to exist. So it is the targeting and the narrow casting is a challenge, um, but we've also been really good as a company about leveraging public relations. Um, and so getting placements in the business publications or websites or whatever we want to call them these
Hmm.
days, outlets for people in the business, but also targeting the horror websites and news feeds
Yeah.
for websites like Dread Central, Bloody Disgusting, Horror Hound. These are the big places people go to get their news, or it's pushed at them every day, or shared on social media. So it's a whole lot of challenges, but they're all surmountable. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and so let's give a couple plugs here. How are people going to find this? When are they going to find it? What should they look for if someone's listening to the show and they want to see Cranked Up TV? Where are they going to go?
well, it's going to be crankeduptv.com. We're really pushing for our first launch on Black Friday. Is that the 29th of November?
mhm.
Um, the site is live right now, but it's really in a testing mode. So
We don't. Yeah, we just
we're
have a few films on there for us to be testing and to make sure all the functions are
yeah,
working and so forth.
yeah, and so the next 4 weeks is it's a big push to get a lot of content, a lot of films up there, and to we'll still be working out um, our digital marketing. We'll still be working out our design. We'll still be working out a lot of those things. My first career was in the internet space, and I worked in Silicon Valley startups in the '90s, and It's a process. It's a constant process of improvement. But part of that's critical is listening to your customers. And in our case too, listening to our filmmakers who we consider our partners and collaborators. So it's a constant process of curation and improvement that we really can't lose sight of.
But they'll also, it's going to be available. It's going to be app based, so you'll be able to get it on your, any of the phones out there, whether it's an Android or an iPhone. Be able to get it on iPads, on tablets. There'll be apps on Amazon Fire Stick, on the Android platforms, whatever the Google
Play,
platform, Google Play,
Roku.
So you'll be able to go right in to the actual, if you use a Fire Stick for your TV to get your platforms all up there, you'll literally be able to go in there, go to Cranked Up TV, click on it, subscribe, and you're good to go. It's going to be very simple.
It's awesome. That is so awesome. Scott, last question. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're a healthy man. Let's call it 40 years from now. We look back on your life. What do you want to be remembered for? You've done a lot of things. And if you look back and say, look, this is what Scott did, what's that thing that you want people to know?
I think it's something that I want to know. I want people to think that, Scott did a good job with society as a whole. He helped, people, whether it was back in the days of owning an automobile, or if it's watching a film today, or if it was the filmmakers now, it helped filmmakers get their films out there to the public. Just, something that's what I think it would be is, remember me as someone who helped people down the path.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you've built what you've built. I love that you're following your passions. I love that you're bringing people along that are trying to also follow their passions. You're building something bigger than yourself. And you're doing that because you didn't sit by and say, well, I sold a few cars. I'm good. We'll ride this off into the sunset. You're doing some great things and on purpose. And I think you're going to change some things. So congratulations. So we talked about crankeduptv.com. What about Good Deed? How will people find you? How will people contact you if they want to talk with you as we start to wrap this up?
Well, they can go. We have emails at, gooddeedentertainment.com, crankedupfilms.com. Crankeduptv.com is just strictly the website for the TV. But any of the, crankedupfilms.com right there. I've got shameless plugs going on. I wore my shirt today.
Yep. I'll send you the bill. No worries. No worries. Folks, that's what this show is all about. So Scott and Phil, thank you very much for being on Purpose Under Pressure.
Thanks for having us.
When we were talking just before the show started, it came up, what are we going to talk about? I said, we're going to talk about pressure. Scott said, I don't have any pressure. And I think it's so cool that we can get up out of bed and we can go to work. And even though the storms are brewing hard, I mean, you're starting a streaming TV service, you're starting a film organization, you're employing people, you're paying paychecks every 2 weeks, hoping that people are, you're building things. That is pressure. And yet we're not succumbing to it. We're going forth and we're getting things done. And if anyone out there is listening, that's what this show is all about. So thank you, Scott, and Phil, for sharing that story.
One more thing I'd like to say, Brian, is like, I look at it this way. If we're given 100% and we feel we're doing things the right way, there shouldn't be any pressure.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. That's Scott Donnelly and Phil Garrett of Good Deed Entertainment and crankeduptv.com. Look for it. Learn to love horror. I enjoy horror. I'm not sure I've seen enough of it to love it, but we're going to find out.
Well, we will have a site for you soon. You can watch plenty.
I can't wait. I want to check out what you're doing. So Scott Donnelly, Phil Garrett, thank you very much for being guests here on Purpose Under Pressure. The show is brought to you by Sandler by the Ruby Group. Sellers are under pressure to perform, and Sandler will help you to succeed on purpose. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose